Welcome back to the meeting after the meeting, everyone. We're your hosts, David O.
Carly R.
And Eric B.
Today we are joined by our lovely repeat guest, Jexi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Always. And I'm just going to hit you with all three questions at once. Where are you from? When were you introduced to recovery? And how long have you been clean?
So I'm from New Jersey. I was introduced to recovery as a child. I kind of grew up in the rooms, and my clean date is November 6, 2012.
Fantastic. Perfect. All right. And since you are our lovely guest, will you tell our audience what we're going to be talking about tonight?
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, we're talking about the 8th tradition of Narcotics Anonymous. Is that right? Am I on the right tradition?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And for anybody who doesn't know what the 8th tradition is, in NA, it is NA should remain fully non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those ones that sounds super, super boring, but actually has a lot more, it actually comes into effect a lot more than you think it would. So am I good to chat?
Yeah, you're ready to go. I'm like
great.
Googling it right now so I can get my stuff in line. But yes,
So-
take it away.
So this is one that I didn't really understand how it would come into play until I got involved in service. And as you know, in the tradition in Narcotics Anonymous, it says, most of us don't have a real understanding of what these traditions mean until we get involved in service. And there's a reason for that, because certain ones like this don't come up unless you're involved in different types of service.
Mm-hmm.
This is in two different parts, right? NA being non-professional and our service centers being able to employ special workers,
yes.
Right? So those are kind of two separate things. So, non-professional, I figure we'll talk about both of those as they relate, because they're kind of really two unrelated things.
Yeah.
But, NA being non-professional, what does that mean? We have a service structure, we vote on things, we have business meetings, right? So it can sound from the outside as being a professional organization. However, because of our structure, what that means is we're not incorporated. We are a nonprofit, but we're not an incorporated business. And what a lot of people don't know is, and I don't know the dates, you'll have to, if anybody's actually interested, you can fact check me and find, but I'm almost positive there was a period of time in which NA World Service was actually run by non-addicts.
I'm pretty sure it's still that way.
I don't know if it's still that way. But I know there was a period of time it was. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that it makes it very confusing if we're, an organization run by addicts for addicts to have the people at the top be non-addicts, right? Because then it comes off as being a more professional type thing.
Yes.
And it also impacts during those times. And the reason I actually looked this up, and I'll give you a little history on why that actually matters to me, is for some people who don't know, there's NA World Service used to put out, and I don't know if they still do, but they used to put bulletins every once in a while when a topic became something worth talking about. Mm-hmm. And so one of the bulletins was bulletin number 29, which came out, I think, in 96. Mm-hmm. And it was about what do we do with people who are on medically assisted treatment, which at the time was methadone.
Yes.
And it is a pretty harshly written bulletin that says that people who are on medically assisted treatment should not be involved in service in NA in any sort of way, because it skews the message and it corrupts the organization, essentially. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people today use that bulletin as a way to judge people who are on medically assisted treatment in recovery now. Mm-hmm. Now, the bulletin makes a good point that if you are, if you're if you're the chairperson of a meeting and you're taking so much medication that you are nodding out, that's a problem, right? Because you're not really giving the best impression of what NA is. And if you have a service in a group, a newcomer doesn't know the difference. They don't know that you're not in charge. And it says, wait a second, the people who are running this thing are all high. So it does have a basis for some sort of, for a good purpose. But the fact is that Bulletin 29 was written by a World Service Board who was not made of members at the time. And so it's not NA approved literature. It is not something that should be used by groups in any way, especially to judge other people. And understanding the tradition of us being non-professional, to me, is one of the biggest arguments against using bulletins, especially ones written in that period of time, to cause harm or judgment towards our members. What a group of, 6 people may think cannot be the representation of an entire organization as a worldwide entity. And so our service structure, for anybody who may be new and doesn't know, is we are an upside down pyramid. And what that means is that the individual addict has the power, has all the power. Anytime any decision is to be made by the organization as a whole, is we have every 2 years what they call the CAR report. And they put together, different motions that different regions, it's the group, then the area, then the region. Sometimes there's zones depending on where you live, and then there's the World Service. So people for the World Service forum, and then they'll say like, hey, our region wants to make this change, or our region thinks this is important. And World decides on, the whatever ones are the most important. They put it in a pamphlet and they send it out to every single group in the entire world, and every single addict in a group votes. And that's how things get changed. And it's important that it works that way, because right now, the core of our program is one addict helping another, and that we are non-professional. If we were a professional organization, then those at the top could simply say, hey, you know what, that's a great idea. We're going to implement that change and let everybody know, without us having any sort of say. And things change over time. Even if you think about, as I said before, like maintenance medication. Well, what maintenance medication meant in 1996 is not the same as it is today.
Yeah.
And as an organization, we need to be able to grow and evolve. And if we can't grow and evolve with the times and to best suit our members, we could never stay functioning as this freely run organization. If it was just a couple people on top passing down the rules, then what's the desire to be a part of something like that? It's like being a low-level employee, but you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
You're just doing what somebody else tells you to. And so that's like the non-professional part is really important for that, for that freedom of our organization being about us and not being about the people who are at the top. Because if you think about it, in 1996, when that bulletin was put out, if we were a professional structure, if we were a professional organization, that World Board at that time could have put out a rule that said that anybody who takes maintenance medication is not allowed in service positions and will not be recognized as clean. That would drastically change the entire idea of our organization, right? Of things having outside issues.
Yeah.
Right? Maintenance medication is an outside issue. It has nothing to do with the Narcotics Anonymous program. What medications a person takes, whether maintenance medication or other, has nothing to do with Narcotics Anonymous, right? Narcotics Anonymous is their message is, in the program is about complete abstinence. But they don't address medications because it's an outside issue. And there are newer NA-approved literature that were put in the CAR report for, this year that was, I don't know what happened because of COVID, things got crazy, but they have a new IP coming out that was to be voted on in the April 2020 CAR report that was mental illness and recovery. And in that fellowship approved, which would be fellowship approved literature, they specifically state in there that medication for any kind of a mental health issue, addiction is a mental health issue, that it's an outside issue, and that people who have to take medication for any sort of mental health issue are to be considered clean. And it states it very, very clearly. And that just shows the difference between a fellowship decided ideal and a board, a director's board of services type of, couple of people trying to make a professional decision. And I think that's really important. The other thing where it says our service centers may employ special workers, this kind of applies in a bunch of different ways, but one of the most interesting ways I've seen it actually is I used to help with the, there was a couple of years where I helped with the convention in Ocean City. And, I did as part of public relations, I was on the hub squad. I wasn't in the core planning part, but there was a lot of things and a lot of conversations I was privy to that I wouldn't have been otherwise. And one of them was when they were trying to find a DJ. They used Friday night, Saturday night. They always had a dance, and they always had, they hired a DJ. And they had the DJs had to sign paperwork that said that they committed to not using any sort of alcohol or drugs while on the premise or coming in high. And one of the groups that they wanted to hire wouldn't sign it. And so there was a conversation about whether the fact that, do we have the right to make them sign it? Or, do we have a right to enforce it? And what that meant. And it was funny because it doesn't sound like it would be all that complicated, but people, came to the traditions and saying it's the safety of the members, right? Yeah. And to hire somebody, which would be a special worker, right? Like a DJ is a special worker. They're not part of our organization. And they're an outside group. And do we, if we're going to hire them, can we expect that they not use? And then the question is, well, what if they sign it and we find out that they've used or they were drinking? What do we do? Do we fire them? Do we tell them to leave? Then we have no DJ. We're in a tough spot. Yeah. To get around that is that now a lot of, conventions and other things actually will hire people within the fellowship. Yeah. Either have them volunteer or hire them depending on what the group decides. But having outside workers is really, there are times where we do have to hire outside help for certain things. And it does make things confusing, right? I remember even on a smaller level when they were, can you hire a DJ, right? That was a core question for something. And, can you hire a band, or do you have to find someone who is volunteering from within the fellowship? Yeah. Well, this says, we cannot, it says our service centers, but really we can hire special workers. It is something that we can do, but it is a conversation of, do we spend money that's supposed to be helping to spread the message on something that may not be seen as important? And, there's a lot of other times, in service centers, when they say special workers, there's a lot of other things that come up, that you don't think about. You pay, maintenance staff or, whatever else it may be. But we do have a right to hire people if we need to. And, you'd be surprised at a group level until you get there's different levels of awareness of things, right? There's I'm a member of a group and I just show up, right? Then there's I'm a member of a group and I do service in the group. And that level of service gives you a whole different idea of how groups run and what's important and how you handle things. And then you get involved in area service and you see a whole different level of how things run. And then you get involved in region, right? I've been up into the regional level, and every different level of service I've gotten involved in has opened my eyes to things that I never thought mattered, that I never thought were things. Yeah. And how many discussions and arguments and different perspectives there are on things that don't seem to matter. I remember, it's a little off the ACE tradition, but when I was doing PR, we had an opportunity to, our county had a huge fair. And my old area was 3 counties in Southern Maryland. It was Calvert, St. Mary's, and Charles County. And Calvert County was having always in the fall has a huge county fair, and it goes for 4 days. And, they actually, all the schools have off to go to the fair. It's huge. And every dance company, every artist, they have their, all the farmers. If it's a thing, it's there, right? And I had talked to the fair, and they had said that they had booths that nonprofits could purchase. It was because the fair itself was a nonprofit organization that actually funded the food bank. They made people pay, and so it was a $200 fee, and that gave you a booth at the fair from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so for 4 days. And you had to have someone. The rule was you had to have someone man it the entire time, all 4 days. So, for $200, that's $50 a day. That's a really reasonable thing if you think about the fact that you're carrying a message to thousands and thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember talking to my area and saying, like, my public relations committee decided that this was something we had a budget and that we were going to spend our budget on. And people at area lost their minds. And they were like, you can't spend money on it. I said, yes, I can. It's in our policy. There's nothing that says we can't. It's carrying the message, right? Like, we're reaching people in our county who have no idea that we exist. And it gives us an opportunity to provide literature. I'm not the only group that's done this. The only area that's done this. I've talked to other public relations areas and region, and and I'm getting all this extra help. Like, of course we can do this.
Yeah.
And it surprised me how many people were against it.
Mm-hmm.
And it all had to do with spending money. And I said, we collect money to help carry the message.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many ways in which we do that. Like, when you're carrying a message, it's not always something that's going to be, that doesn't cost anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to decide, like, is the cost worth it, right? Like, if you're saying you're going to pay $200 to put a booth up and you may have 3 people that walk by, then maybe that's not worth it. But if you're going to pay the money and you're going to have thousands of people, and mind you, at the time, the overdose rate in Calvert County was like astronomical. They were like one of the highest counties in the whole state for overdoses, and they were super rural.
Mm-hmm.
So it was insane. It was like, we need to reach these people.
Yeah.
And so what's the, and we had the money. What else are we using the money for? Like, this is what it's for. And, it just comes to, it's always been very interesting to me about how, the idea of paying outside groups or even the way we handle finances within the organization, like how controversial some of that stuff may be.
Oh, yeah.
And like, the fact is that this all has to go back to us not being professional. We don't have a rule book. We have guidelines. We have suggestions. We have traditions. We have concepts. We have these, guidelines for how we are to, carry a message, how we're supposed to be structured, how we welcome, the newcomer. But we don't have a boss who's at the top who's saying, yes, you can do this. No, you can't. We're self-governing, which is not always easy. Sometimes maybe the idea of being a professional organization may make things easier, right? Because then it's not you don't have to defend your decisions, right? When in a professional organization, you're only doing what the person above you tells you to do.
Yeah.
The only person who has to carry the weight of decisions are the people who are up top. If the regular person doesn't have to carry that weight. But in our organization, each addict is taught responsibility first through having responsibility through their own decisions. Mm-hmm. And then later through how they, impact the organization as a whole. And it helps a lot of people. They say the steps are how we learn to live with ourselves, and the traditions are how we learn to live with others. We're better to learn personal responsibility and how to have, what consequences for decisions, are like, than learning that within a controlled environment, right? Within an organization that is used to having a bunch of screw ups, right?
Yeah.
Like, it happens. Like, I've heard so many stories of like a treasurer or something like running off with thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, man, that sucks, but it happens. And it's like, getting this responsibility of like, I get to make these decisions. I get to help people, and I get to be responsible for both the consequences, but also the rewards of it. When you know you've reached somebody, when you know that you have given information to somebody who didn't have it before, you get to feel what it's like to know that you did something good for someone else by simply sharing your experience. Like, where else do we get that than a program that's set up in a non-professional way? So again, traditions aren't always the most exciting, and there's not always like a whole lot to talk about, but I feel like they do matter, and they don't just matter to the organization, but they matter too to how we interact with in our own lives outside the organization.
Yeah.
So hopefully I said something there on the age tradition that was worthwhile. I know it's probably one of my least exciting to talk about, but
Yeah.
I think it's the hardest one, Jexi, honestly.
Yeah.
Out of all of the
I
traditions, I think this is the one where it's like shit. Like, okay. How...
Well, I had some controversial thoughts that I would like to bring up.
Go ahead, David.
Okay.
Look at you over there.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, Carly was giving me the stink eye the whole time. She's like, "Why are you fucking writing questions?" So I was like, "I have questions."
Not
okay.
allowed to have questions.
Yeah, we are allowed to have questions here. So on the topic of controversial spending in our area, one of the things was billboards. Was NA billboards. A lot of people were against it, saying that it was promotion, but technically it was paying an outside worker, essentially.
Yeah.
So my question, I want to hear everybody's opinion as to whether they believe billboards are sort of a breach of that promotional gap, or if does it fall under the we're hiring a special worker?
No, it's PR,
Well,
right?
I'll tell you my thoughts on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead, Jexi.
I don't think it's promotion at all. First of all, if you have the money to spend on a billboard, as I said, it's the same thing with spending the money for the booth at the fair. Are you in a place where you're reaching the people that you need to reach, right? The difference between attraction and promotion in NA especially when it comes to promotion, because I had this argument with people all the time because we talked about doing radio ads. And it's absolutely, like, in the PR handbook, it talks all about how we can do that, right? Here's the difference. What NA will say is things like, got a drug problem, give us a call. Looking for help, come to our meetings, right? What we don't do is, if we had a billboard that says, we can fix your drug problem, or, we can cure you, right? Or our way is the only way that's going to work for you. Like, that's the kind of promotion stuff that we don't do. What we do is say, do you need help? Here we are.
What about you, Eric?
And I think as long as you're reaching people, then it's worth it. But if you have that billboard on some random rural road that no bags are driving past, then it's probably not the best way to spend funds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly what Jexi just said. It's about the message on the billboard. I mean, when you rent... Okay, so, like, think about it like this, right? Your issue, or people's perceived issue in an area service meeting, is that, all right, well, we're giving this person money to put up a billboard. But then at that same thing, it's like, well, we shouldn't have any dances. We shouldn't have any events, because we're then giving money to rent a space for this. So we're promoting the space that we're using for our dance. Like, unbeknownst to us, we're like, if you guys are going to have, like, an event, you should really rent this hall. So, I mean, it's the same thing. It's all about the message.
Yeah. And I'm going to go deeper. But okay. What about you, Carly?
I think my opinion was swayed.
You think your opinion was swayed? Okay.
Like, in a good way. Like, I was thinking I was more on the promotion side, but then when Jexi brought up, like, how it's worded, like,
it is
a whole lot of fucking sense.
Yeah, it really does depend on how it's worded and everything. If it's literally just like Narcotics Anonymous with a phone number to the hotline, that says almost nothing, and it's hard, and it's really not promoting anything. It's just like, oh, this is available. Yeah, this is a phone number for Narcotics Anonymous. Okay,
but like when I think billboard,
and most of our...
Go ahead, Jexi.
And most of our posters, because we do have posters and stuff in different areas, like different. If you ever look, and most of them just say like, have a drug problem and have a phone number. Yeah, like that's usually how they are. They don't usually give information about the organization or say to come join us or anything. Just gives a phone number.
Yeah. So she swayed you, Carly?
And the other thing is too is that we're not a secret society, right? No. Like we're not. We should. We're anonymous. We're not confidential, right? Like we're not trying to like keep a secret. We want people to know we exist, and sometimes people, I was lucky. I knew what NA was before I needed it because I had family members who were in it. But if you've never been exposed to the 12 steps, how do you know it's there? And I can't tell you how many times when I did public relations that people were like, I didn't know Narcotics Anonymous was here. And so having a billboard that just lets people know, like, hey, Narcotics Anonymous is here in your area, like sometimes is all people need to try to get help.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. All right. My next.
I thought you were gonna go deep. What's going on here?
He's getting there.
There's more. There's more coming here, buddy.
All right, go ahead.
Take it easy. Do you have anything?
No. I'm just go ahead. Go ahead, David.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So, my next part is sort of how is, and again, I want everybody's opinion. How is hiring a special worker separate from endorsing a business? For instance, when you were talking about that DJ at an NA event, are they allowed to put out business cards for their own business? Because if so, it could be perceived as if Narcotics Anonymous is promoting and endorsing this guy as a DJ. If he is allowed to promote his own business within our event with just simple business cards, like on his table, like that, I can see how that could be construed as, hey, Narcotics Anonymous, we trust this DJ. So it could be viewed as a promotion of that particular employee. And this time, I want to start with Carly. What's your opinion on that?
I can absolutely see that. I remember this coming up.
Go ahead, Jexi.
Sorry, was I interrupting somebody?
No, you're good.
I had nothing to say, so please do.
Okay. So this came up actually in my area, like not at the convention, but I remember one of the guys we had. I don't remember. It was like a group was doing something, like it was smaller, and they had somebody was gonna DJ, and they were paid, I guess, because they were an outside person, and they were the big discussion was, were we allowed to put their name on the flyer?
Mm-hmm.
Because as you said, it comes off as promotion.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't remember how that was handled. I think they took the name off. And I think for the convention, if I remember correctly, part of the agreement, and I could be wrong, but I don't remember ever being told what the name of the DJ was. I don't remember them having any advertising, and I don't remember them having any cards. And I think it was I would assume that it was in their contract that we hired them with the basis of them not promoting, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And I can see, if you're hiring, and I think that's why a lot of times the easiest solution is to really either hire or not even hire, have someone do service work by volunteering their services as a DJ to an event, right? Who's in our program. I think that's usually the easiest way to get around it, because the fact is I don't think there's a right answer for that, because usually when you hire someone for their services, like part of what you're hiring is you're allowing them, to promote. But on the flip side, like you think about, like, okay, if you're in a wedding, you have a wedding and you hire a photographer, generally, the photographer is not walking around to wedding guests handing out their cards, right? Like, that's kind of tacky. It's probably in poor taste.
It's very tacky.
But Eric has experience. Yeah. He was a wedding photographer.
But it's tacky to, like, go around and be like, hey, hire me, right? But if somebody were to come up to you and say, hey, it seems like you're doing a great job. Do you have a business card? You'd give them your business card, right? Because you're not going out promoting yourself. You were asked, and I think it's appropriate then for you, for a wedding photographer, to then give their business card to the person you asked, right? So I would say that probably would be the same kind of idea, is that we wouldn't be able to put it on flyers. We wouldn't be able to, have them openly promote people to follow them. However, if somebody asked who they were and so they liked them, they want to hire them, giving out their business card, I think is totally acceptable. That's kind of how I would look at it. The same way you would do at a personal event.
Eric?
Oh, I completely agree. I completely agree. Like,
you have nothing controversial?
Well, I mean, what? Like, the only thing controversial that I have is sometimes we overthink this sort of stuff.
I know.
Where it's like, no, you know what? The DJ shouldn't be able to hand out information about, if you want to hire them. No, there are DJ. Because then, see, okay, so if you went up to the DJ and were
I'm just asking questions. That's all I'm doing.
I hear you, but sometimes I just think...
I'm just devil's advocate over here.
You fall into this, like, weird semantics of, like, how it's written, and you're like...
Yeah.
But they did such a good job, it's attraction rather than promotion.
That's true, but... It's still at that event, so... It, like, did they go for that guy because... we're saying this DJ is going to do the best job.
Hold on. I don't think they're ever going to say, like,
nobody's going to say that.
DJ Lanky Lizard's playing, like, the NA dance this Thursday night or whatever. It's like, oh, there'll be a DJ. And then that, like, the DJ's name won't actually be on any of the advertising.
Okay, well, let's up the ante a little bit. What if it was a famous person? Let's say
you care more about famous people than me, though.
I'm just saying.
Like, I don't care.
If it comes to that, let's say, now the Foo Fighters are headlining the NA dance.
Band will be performing.
Band will be performing. Wow.
Yeah, I think you can't promote
live music.
I think the idea is
okay.
Yeah,
you don't
I think
say
that
Foo
if
Fighters.
you had
Oh, go ahead, Jexi.
I'm agreeing with you. I don't think even if it was somebody who's famous, because you don't want people coming to your NA convention because the Foo Fighters are playing, right? Like
absolutely.
if they're at the convention and they get to hear the Foo Fighters, and like that's fantastic. But I remember I was actually at a convention, and the main speaker, who I didn't know, I guess does something else. I don't know whether he does like what I do, just on a greater level, where he has like a YouTube channel or something, but he was known for doing something else. And so somehow during his share, he brought it up, and I don't know, maybe he writes for a magazine. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, he brought it up, and like immediately people were like, outside issue. And it was almost like a shameless self-promotion plug. And like, I didn't know, because I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
That it was like a thing. But like, so I've seen people even be hard on addicts for promoting themselves in situations like that. Like nobody said, oh, the speaker's this guy who everybody knows. Like it was just the main speaker, his name is, was like whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's the same thing, right? Like NA didn't ask him to speak because he was some guy that people knew. They asked him to speak because they thought he had a message worth carrying.
Yes, but like my concern would be in the advent of like in the times we're in with social media and everything. Let's say all our flyers just say live music. That's fine. It turns out that it is some famous band whatever, band X. But then at that dance, somebody pulls out their cell phone and films.
You can't control that.
I understand you can't control that, but that's something you have to take into account. And
you can't control that. That's people who are.
I understand that.
We're going way too far in the what ifs right now.
Oh, I'm going down. I'm diving down this rabbit hole.
See, this is why some of these traditions, to be quite honest, are fucking stupid. Is because like you're trying to make it so that like you need to fucking check your cell phone at the door to enter this fucking NA dance.
Maybe that could be the future.
Maybe
depending on depending on some sort of event that happens where it becomes very controversial and comes back on Narcotics Anonymous.
Well, that's just crazy, though. I mean, think about that. You're asking,
it's
you're asking people.
Possible.
So if you get a famous act, right,
yes,
to play a show, what you would say is like, if you want to come to this NA sponsored event, we're going to need you to check all your electronic devices at the front door. But that's not how the world works anymore, and the world's changing.
I understand that.
And, I mean, is anyone giving up their phone here?
No.
No, but one of the things too is they do have, so at a lot of these events, they do have like the social media statement, which is read before anybody speaks, anybody does anything all the time, right? Like every workshop you go that says like, hey, like, you know, it's anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, right? Like, and you have to be careful posting on social media, even with your friends, tagging where you're at, right? Like, we want to make sure people feel safe, because I can write, you know, I'm in Ocean City in an AA convention, and somebody else knows that their family member is in Ocean City at a convention, and they see me posting about it being an AA, and all of a sudden their anonymity is broken, right? So that stuff happens all the time. But I think what's also important to remember is the attraction rather than promotion. That's for us. So that's for making sure that we, as a fellowship, aren't going around telling people
NA is the
NA, right? Like we're supposed to, right? Like we're not supposed to do that. But and we need to be careful when we hire special workers, right? But we don't necessarily have to work. Like, we're very clear that when we hire people, it's an outside thing. We're just hiring them. We're not promoting them. And I think that as a core of a fellowship, like, because we read almost every meeting I've been to reads the traditions as a reading at the beginning of every meeting, right? Yeah. So individual addicts who go to events, right, should have a general understanding that we hire people because we hire people, not because we're promoting one group over the other. But we have to have food service at these things, right? Like, we don't. And I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm going to get to that one in a second. Same with T-shirt printers and all different sorts of stuff, right? Like, we generally, you know, hire whatever place offers us the best price, or, you know, whatever it is. But it's understood by addicts that we're not promoting them, because it's drilled into our heads at the meetings, right? And anybody who's going to be at these events is an addict who understands that. Yes.
And like, I totally understand that. Like, Jexi, I've agreed with everything you've said. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
He's just an asshole.
Thank you, Carly. I love you. But I'm trying to look at it through the lens of people who are not us, who are not in the fellowship. How it could come back to potentially look bad on our organization. Because, like, again, in the world of the internet, just that one connection that you have with a disreputable vendor or special worker of some kind can get you, quote unquote, canceled on the internet. Like, you can get in deep shit. And like what you were just saying is like, yeah, we need to serve food at these places. What if Narcotics Anonymous hired Chick-fil-A to do all the catering for some event, and then
first off,
it
wouldn't even get,
and then everybody on there,
it wouldn't even get there. It wouldn't even get there, because you know that in that area service meeting, in that area service meeting, you know, it would be brought up and it would be fought about.
I understand that.
People would probably go with a different vendor.
Okay.
We cook shit ourselves.
Okay. And I understand that. But there's a number of them.
Yeah, but there's not like one rogue person who's like, I'm gonna get Chick-fil-A. This is a discussion that everyone would have to talk about.
Absolutely.
And in different parts, and first off, we're not gonna get like too political here, but in different parts of the country, and Chick-fil-A is fine for people to get, right?
I understand that.
And like, it depends on the area.
But yes, you see what I'm going at. We could easily hire the wrong special worker and it look bad.
First off, if you're ordering, if you're catering Chick-fil-A for like a fucking event, like, first off, no, like, do like Chick-fil-A, like, I mean, what are you fucking doing? Like, is this like I don't know? Is this like
saying?
Is this like homecoming for college, like prep event? Like, what is this? Like, why are you having a Chick-fil-A catered event? Like,
you don't know.
Don't you want to support local? Wouldn't that be better to support local than
so we support local. We buy Eric's chicken. It turns out
First off, Eric does not eat chicken, nor would he kill chicken.
Okay, just stick with me. Okay, so we support local. Eric's local Catonsville Farm chicken, fried chicken, and it turns out that Eric's chicken is coming from a belligerent racist Eric. And now our organization is associated with a belligerent, outspoken racist.
I think it depends on when that person becomes a belligerent, outspoken racist.
What if he was the whole time?
But what if it wasn't known until a certain point?
Well, I'm aware of that.
When did you hire that person?
But do you see how hiring any special worker can be risky?
Okay,
This is
I
absolutely
can see what
fucking
you're
ridiculous.
saying,
Yes.
but hold on. I'm gonna bring it back to us.
I'm going
right?
to reel
Because
this
there's
back down to
responsibility
earth
for
and
these
into
things.
reality. Thank you,
Thank
Jexi.
But no, I'm going to bring it back to us, right? As
Yes.
addicts, because we do have a responsibility, right? Like as I was saying before, because we're not professional, we take on the responsibility of the consequence.
Yes.
Do you know what? Actually, if I'm being real, what has worried me more than hiring special workers and hiring the wrong one and putting a bad name on our organization. I'll tell you one of the things that's really been bothering me.
I think I know where
is,
you're going.
You know, is that, a lot of meetings right now are starting to meet in person. And
Okay.
whether they want to meet in person, that's fine, right? I have no problem with that. But a lot of groups are meeting in person and either are not following the place guidelines or not following regular safety guidelines. They're not wearing masks. They're not sitting 6 feet apart, not having regular safety protocols that they should, right?
Yes.
So what I'm more worried about in regards to having a bad name come back at us is one of these meetings that is choosing to say, we don't care, we're not going to wear masks, we're not whatever, and there's an outbreak of COVID.
Yeah.
What they do now is it gets traced back to where. And so the same way that we know that some 16-year-old's birthday party in Alabama caused an outbreak, I'm 100% sure that if that were to happen, it would be known that the outbreak occurred because of a Narcotics Anonymous meeting that did not wear masks or stood 6 feet apart. And so if we're going to talk about what's going to
Jexi
put a
down the
bad
rabbit
name of
hole.
Narcotics Anonymous, but I'm saying if we're going to talk about what could potentially put a bad face on our organization, then let's talk about what we may be doing ourselves.
Absolutely.
Because hiring somebody else, you
don't.
can't control that. But, we're
several
personal
points.
responsibility is that
I wrote them down.
I've seen people, groups now that are not doing just basic personal responsibility. And I don't know, and if you guys watch any of my videos, I go off on this all the time. I don't know how you can call yourself as somebody who has a strong recovery program and not wear a mask to an in-person meeting.
Yes.
We have a lot of people who have poor health issues. We have people who have, live with families. We have all of these things. And even if you don't believe, right, even let's say you're one of those people who doesn't believe that COVID's real, that masks are a conspiracy, whatever it is, I don't care.
Yeah.
The fact is that for the sake of being a productive, helpful member of society, you
there
would
it is.
still wear masks for others, right? That's what we're told. We're
100%.
told to do the right thing for our communities, for our families. And right now, I'm seeing a lot of people like, I didn't get clean to cause harm.
Yes.
And if you're sitting in a meeting and you're not wearing a mask and you're not sitting 6 feet apart and and the group is not, I refuse to support any group right now that is meeting in person and not being safe. There are plenty of groups that are meeting in person and being safe, and I'm totally okay with that. But groups that are meeting in person and not asking people to be safe. Now, you can't police everybody. You can't force things, but you can ask for basic decency. And groups that are not doing that is what I have a problem with.
Yeah.
More than maybe hiring Eric's Road Chicken place.
Eric's racist chickens.
Well, so wait, let's go back to the
racist chickens?
Yeah, let's go back to the racist chickens real
Okay.
quick. Something that bothers me, like you're talking about outside, like hiring people outside of Narcotics
Yes, you
Anonymous.
are a special worker.
So, but what about hiring people inside? Because I think that's just as bad. I think hiring people outside is better than hiring people inside, because then it's like, all right, so this
then they're an active member. Yes, hiring an outside worker, you have some plausible deniability for sure. Like I didn't know he was a racist chicken farmer. I just thought he was a nice guy and he made good fried chicken. So we had it at our home group. Cool, no problem.
It's good to know that it's actually vegan
It's vegan chicken. Yes, it's
so it's not real
it's tofu molded in the shape of a chicken. It's great.
Yeah. I'm happy I made you eat it. So
thank you.
good.
But yes, we have plausible deniability in that sense. So when it is a member, it does make it a lot stickier and a lot.
Well, but then there's a fucking expectation by that
riskier.
member that anytime something happens, they should get that business.
Yeah.
And I think that's fucked up. Because there's nothing that pisses me off more when someone's like, well, I do this thing, and like, you need that thing.
This is so pointed.
It's very pointed, but it's like, you do this thing, and it's like, I need this thing that I have to fucking ask you for it. Maybe I don't want to buy it from you. Like, maybe I want to buy it from someone else.
Yeah.
So,
but then you get the stink eye in every single meeting you're at because you did not go with that. And a
I think
person.
if you have this service, if you are a member of Narcotics Anonymous, we are taught to do service, and I think that there is nothing wrong with volunteering your services because as a member, we're taught to give back. I think you should be volunteering. I think if you are a member and you need to be now, I'm not talking about, let's say if there's like you're catering food, right? Mm-hmm. Then of course I think the cost should be covered, right? The person should not have to cover the cost. That's crazy. I think the cost should be paid for, but I think the service should be provided. You're a DJ? Sure. We'd love to have you DJ. You're one of our members, and it's great that you're volunteering your services for the betterment of the organization. But I think that there's already a line being crossed when we're, depending on what the service is, that we're paying anything, unless we're paying something very minimal. Like, because obviously if you're gonna DJ for 5 hours and you got to lug your equipment and it costs, basic, whatever it's to cover costs, right? We'll pay for your gas, maybe the hotel room, we have a room for you, that kind of thing. You can come to the convention for free because you're doing this service, right? Like, I'm okay with that kind of stuff. And that's generally, I think, how it's usually done with a lot of services now is that they are members who get I have a t-shirt printing company. I charge just the cost. I don't make anything off the t-shirts. And I get my room at the convention. They pay for my hotel for the weekend and we call it a day, Yeah. I think that generally makes more sense. But I think you're right. I think hiring and paying a full service charge for a member's business, I think that in itself crosses line.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All right. I think I'm about out. But I do want to ask one thing directly to Carly. Why am I making you mad?
Just because you're a little outrageous, and I have zero patience for that tonight.
Okay, that's fair. I have never gotten such an angry look from Carly, and it concerned me and scared me. So
no, it's more of me just being, kind of not really feeling it.
You're not feeling the rabbit hole tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the times I'm on board, but then when it just gets like
I was being
out
ridiculous.
there,
oh yeah, I was going out there for sure.
And I don't have the patience for it. I'm just
okay. That's fine. That's fine. Did I lose you?
You know what?
I lost you at the racist
chickens. I can see where
chickens,
she's coming from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
And I appreciate
I can see where she's coming from.
Oh, Jexi, I could tell you got a special inflection tonight, and I was really happy. I was like, yes, I fired up Jexi. Yes.
Look, there are so many real controversial issues within Narcotics Anonymous already that bringing in hypothetical issues is almost not even necessary.
I know, but I'll be honest. This was a boring tradition, and I had to spice it up.
Of course,
I had to throw some spice in there. It was a lot of tongue in cheek humor for me because all of that is quite a bit outlandish. But I think the ultimate thing I was trying to just point at is just there are pitfalls out there, and we need to do our due diligence as a group to make sure that we're adhering to our traditions for ourselves and for the greater good of how we look as an organization.
Absolutely. And you know what else I think that this tradition doesn't specifically say, and it may say it, I haven't read through the full book on traditions, but it says that we may hire special workers, but one of the people that we don't ever hire is we don't hire doctors and psychiatrists and things like that to help us get our message across, right? Like we don't ever hire in that type of way. And I think that, it's one of the things that we don't talk about, but because it's not said there. It says we can hire special workers, but I think we need to be very clear about like what that doesn't mean. Like we definitely don't hire. And I've seen it. Like I've seen people get very confused over like what we do, what we don't do, and then like what that gray area is. But like one of the things that we never do is like we're not going to hire like a somebody to come speak at an event that is not an addict. Right? We're not going to hire anybody to come speak at an event, right? Like that's not what we do. People volunteer and do service by speaking. We're not hiring people to do hug squad at events, or, there's a lot of things that we don't hire people for because that is part of our responsibility as a fellowship to volunteer to help keep things going.
Yes.
Can you imagine if we hired speakers? Can you imagine if we hired, doctors to come give us, the latest information about addiction? Can you imagine if we hired, counselors and whatever? Like if it would distort our fellowship so much. And so like, we hire special workers like that we've talked about, like food services, DJs, things like that. Like absolutely. But there's a whole group of people that we would never, ever hire because it would cross a line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally agree.
Cool.
All right. I think I've hit the bottom of this rabbit hole, and I have pissed off my co-hosts enough.
Yeah, this one's not as exciting.
No, I think I did a good job of spicing it up.
9 will be exciting, but 8 is not.
No.
So
What's 9 again?
Outside issues.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
I think we should all bring a quote unquote outside issue.
2 outside issues. Yeah.
No, 4.
4.
Yeah, bring 2 because otherwise we'll all have the same one.
Ooh, yeah. So we'll between now and then we have to think of our own individual outside issue, and probably have a backup too, just in case somebody like copies, like Eric.
Oh, I have a whole list, so we're good.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And what's great is
I'm excited for that one. No.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be exciting.
Well, because here's the thing: there's a lot of things that come up, and like as much as 8 sucks, like 8 leads the way. Like 8 is right. If you look at where it is, it's right in between us talking about being fully self-supporting and outside issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's kind of like that transition between the two. How we manage our money and what we manage our money on, and then like, as I said, outside issues. It's if you look at where it's placed, it's right in between those two.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's kind of boring, because it's just like it's a transition tradition.
Yeah.
I have some bad news. Outside issues is tradition 10.
Oh, what's 9?
What's
then?
9?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, NA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve.
Can we skip 9?
Nope.
So we can skip 9.
Nope.
Son of a bitch.
There's not a whole lot to discuss there, because it's pretty much the same idea as what we've discussed tonight. Is a structure, right? Like we have service boards, right? Like that's what we do. Like we want to focus on public relations. We make a public relations service committee. We want to, I don't know that there's a whole lot to talk about more than structure.
Yeah.
We can, or
Yeah.
we can skip it. Whatever you want to do.
In a nutshell, right there.
We can do 10. That's fine.
Sweet. So now you can just label this one 8 and 9 because she hit it.
Sure.
She nailed it.
Sure. We can do that.
Yes.
Yeah, right. There you go. Make this be 8 and 9. Well, because really, if you want to talk about it for a half a second, that's all that is saying that like we're not organized, but we do we don't have someone on the top who's in charge of these things. But like, for example, when this whole COVID thing happened, my area is like, we need a website because we need a quick way to let people in our area know what's going on. So we quickly developed the website committee, and those people were responsible for putting it on, talking to the area and saying like, okay, here's what it's going to cost. Here's what we need. And, and getting things done. Like it's how we get things done. And, any person can be on any of these committees. You can have, some have clean time, suggested clean time for leadership roles, right? You're going to be the chairperson, to be a treasurer, right? Like you should have some sort of clean time, but to be a member of any of these committees, anybody can do that. And so, it makes it so that we can get things done on a more efficient, basis, because a lot of times, like, area service only meets once a month. Region meets usually once every 2 months. If you didn't have committees that were working together to get things done in that time, nothing would ever move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, it's not in a professional way.
100%. All right. Well, we would like to thank our guest, Jexi, for joining us once again.
And Jexi,
Thanks,
where
guys.
can everyone find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube. My channel is called According to Jexi. I'm also on Twitter. But yeah, come follow me on YouTube. I'm 125 people away from hitting 1,000 subscribers, so I'm really excited.
Ooh, good for you.
That's cool.
That's freaking awesome.
That's really cool.
All right.
Thank you.
And where can people find us, Eric?
Oh, I like that. I like what you did there. So
That's nice.
we are fully self-supporting here at Podcast Recovery, and if you would like to become a member of our home group and become a home group member, you can join our Patreon page in the description below.
Yay, Patreon.
Or throw some money in the digital basket
Yay,
at
digital
our
basket.
PayPal account. And you can, follow, subscribe, comment, share, tweet, and whatever else.
What do you
can
do on Instagram? Do you just DM, I guess?
You slide into DMs.
Okay.
You don't just DM. What do you mean?
I didn't, well, like you tweet somebody, and with Facebook you comment, and I just didn't know if there was like a special thing for Instagram, or like
You've
send me
never
a snap.
slid into
or-
anyone's DMs before?
No.
You have to. You comment. You share. You have stories. Have you never been on Instagram?
No, I have a Podcast Recovery Instagram that I'm on all the time, Eric. Clearly, because you told me to do that, so I did it.
I never gave you the password.
I know. I've been waiting
Okay.
on you.
All right. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
That's what I'm waiting on. I have recorded several virtual vlogs recently, though, so you should be proud of that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Well, let's see. Let's see how.
All
that
right,
works.
let's wrap it up.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mama Carly, for keeping us on task. All right, everybody, for more information about us, go to podcastrecovery.com. You can read little info about Eric, Carly, Allie, and myself. But most importantly, everybody out there,
Stay safe and stay clean.
thank you, Carly.